Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another election prediction. This time we have John Ossoff, the senator from Georgia, who was recently elected in 2020, versus former President Donald Trump. So, before I start off this video, I'm just setting up the safe states. I would highly recommend subscribing to the channel if you aren't already. We're getting extremely close to 1,000 subscribers, so we just need a little bit more to get there. I think we could probably hit it this month if everyone who hasn't subscribed already hits that subscribe button. But other than that, let's get right into this. So John Ossoff, I actually think he would be an extremely good candidate for the Democrats to run in an election scenario. He's a young Democrat. He doesn't support a lot of like far left positions. He's pretty much in line with the mainstream Democratic Party. He's pretty much a generic Democrat on the issues. And I also do see him doing well with the populist type of voters because, he does support a lot of populist policies like ending stock trades in Congress. I think that'll definitely help him out. And he tried pushing forward that bill through Congress, so I do think he earns some credit for that. And I think he'll just be able to appeal to all the progressive voters in the Democratic Party and the generic Democrats in the party as well. So he'll win over the moderates and the progressives, both factions. And I do see him doing well with populist voters. So let's just get right into this. So the first few states I'm going to be ranking, Iowa and Ohio. I'm going to put these as likely Republican states. I do think Ossoff would be able to do a lot better than Joe Biden in both of these states, but these are still just trending Republican, so they won't go to lean Republican, even though Ossoff, being a young, energetic candidate, decently charismatic, he did unseat a Republican senator, which was a pretty impressive performance in Georgia. But again, I just see these as still likely Republican states. Don't really think Ossoff will be able to make it any more narrow in either of those two. The next state I'm going to be covering, Florida. Just due to Republican trends here, I just think it's out of reach for Ossoff as well. I think like most Democrats won't be able to get it down to a lean Republican margin unless you have like an extreme Latino outreach here in the state. But I just don't see it happening. Just look at the voter registration in Florida. It's 680K Republican advantage currently. So it's kind of just gone for Democrats, even with a really good candidate in John Ossoff. In his home state of Georgia, he'll definitely win by a lean Democratic margin. I mean, he does have pretty solidly approval ratings. It is his home state. He would have decent Southern appeal too. And he would do well with black voters like he did back in his Senate election here. So again, I think he'll be able to pretty much solidly hold Georgia. He'll do well with independents in the state as well. In the state of Texas, John Ossoff's good enough that he'll get it down to a lean Republican margin, I believe. Again, I think he would have decent appeal to the southern states. In Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia, he's a traditional Democrat, so he'll be able to appeal to all the generic Democrats here and just pretty much easily win all three of these states by over 10%. So, still a pretty close contest. In the state of Maine, I also think he'll be able to win it by a safe blue margin. Even Maine's second, I see getting more competitive than usual, just because I really think he could do pretty well in this district. I think he could emulate a bit of Jared Golden here, get it to be a lot more competitive than usual. He's more younger, more charismatic, and I think he would do well with that populist type of voter that lives in Maine's second. So I think he could get it down to about a lean Republican margin or so. Still not winning the district, though. The state of New Hampshire, I think he'll be able to win by a likely blue margin. Again, you run a generic Democrat against Donald Trump and John Ossoff, and you'll be able to have a pretty decent victory in most states. Because, again, it's just really Biden's age and just people's disapproval of him as the incumbent president. You run someone who's just a fresh face of the Democratic Party, someone much younger, charismatic. As in a generic Democrat, you'll probably be able to beat Donald Trump just due to Trump's favorables are just like high 30s or low 40s typically, similar to Joe Biden. So again, just Biden and Trump are just pretty unpopular candidates overall, just according to the approval ratings here. In Alaska, I would put this at a likely Republican state. I do think John Ossoff will be able to get the margins down in this state with some independent voters and moderate voters going his way. I think he could definitely win them over here. Not enough to make it more competitive than likely are. The state of Minnesota, again, you could appeal to most Democrats here, probably be able to win by a likely margin. In the state of, no, the district of Nebraska second, he would also be able to win by a likely blue margin. So very suburban districts, it's trending blue. He'll pretty much be pretty easily winning it here. In Nevada and Arizona, again, most polls, if you run a generic Democrat against Donald Trump, they pretty much easily win Nevada and Arizona just due to independent voters breaking their way. You don't have a Biden's age issue. You don't have his terrible favorables. And John Ossoff, he's probably a bit better than the generic Democrat, honestly. I do think he would be able to do pretty well in both these states. Okay. North Carolina, how could I forget about that one? I still think, I don't know. I'm actually going to leave this one off the board. I'll leave it for the end because I think this will be one of the closest states. Okay. In the state of Michigan, PA, and Wisconsin, I have Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin all as lean Democratic states. Again, I see John Ossoff doing pretty well in all of them. I think he would have a pretty decent appeal to populist voters. He's a much younger Democrat, so Democrats don't have the age issue to worry about, which is always going to be an issue on the voters' minds when both the major candidates, Biden being like 80, Trump being in his very late 70s, that's always going to be an issue on voters' minds. So running a more younger candidate and someone who's actually likable, they'll definitely be able to win over the Rust Belt by a pretty decent margin against Donald Trump, who has pretty low favorables. And in the state of North Carolina, I really do believe that John Ossoff would even be able to flip this state as narrowly blue. It's not a Republican trending state. It's more like a neutral state. I don't think it's trending for either side right here. But again, it has a pretty high growing urban population. So you run a really good candidate in John Ossoff, you could definitely flip this state. It's a very purple state, I would argue. I don't really think it's red trending. But again, if you run a strong Democrat, you could totally flip this, even against Donald Trump, who doesn't have the best favorables to go around. It's definitely possible. Other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.